Welcome back to Q&A with S&A. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're delighted to be joined by Tracey Waring, former partner at EY. We won't hold that against you. Leadership mentor and keynote speaker, the two, the way we connected, leadership and keynote speaking. And after an accomplished career in audit and complex accounting, again, we won't hold that against you.
Why? Sorry, keep
Tracy's dedicated the next chapter of her career to helping people build more successful careers, live fulfilled lives and create meaningful legacies. Welcome to the podcast today, Tracy. It was so lovely to meet you it was months ago now, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really nice to be here. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Shane. It's fantastic. And I promise I'll try not to talk about technical accounting too much because I know how riveting it is for you.
We can talk accounting standards, can't we?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
IFRS, what was that? AASB? Let's go.
I'm pretty sure our podcast listeners are thinking to themselves, what language are they speaking?
No accounting.
We don't need to talk accounting today anyway because you escaped accounting for a reason. No, not a bad reason, just because sometimes you move on from that. What a long career in accounting. Before we start, because people will be interested, what made you start thinking about accounting and made you progress so far? Because people don't become partners at EY just because, I felt like it one day. It's a really long process and hard. So
absolutely.
Tell us a bit about that, the way it all started for Tracy.
Absolutely. So I think it's probably going back to more my upbringing of who I am. So I guess who I am today is not just my career but everything that I did. So I was born and bred on a farm halfway between Melbourne and Adelaide, a little town called Nil.
Love it. Absolutely
a few
love
footballers
Nil.
come from there. So Jason McCartney and a few of the guys from there come from Nil.
There's a great Barmy place.
There is,
Nil.
absolutely.
We've been a couple of times.
Yes. Absolutely. So grew up on a farm. I probably, my dad wouldn't call me a farm girl. In fact, at the age of 16, my dad said, we were out working cattle and he asked me to go round up the heifers. And I said to him, what's a heifer? And he's like, What? You're 16 and you don't know what a heifer is? And he said, well, it's a cow that hasn't had a calf. And I said, well, how would one tell that a cow hasn't had a calf? And he said, well, they don't have an udder. So I spent the next couple of hours looking under the legs of cows to figure out if they had an udder. So needless to say, I wasn't going to be a farmer.
Yeah.
I was the second of four daughters, so Jodie, Tracy, Kelly, Michelle, or as my mum called us, Jodie, Tracy, Kelly, Michelle. Who are you? I'll find you. Two incredible hardworking parents, Moss and Elaine, worked on a farm. They were the ones who gave me my grounding in work ethic, accountability, contribution, helping others, and I guess that's a social side of life. At our house, you could pop in at 3:00 and stay for dinner and somehow Mum would rustle up some food even though we were 44 kilometres from the nearest supermarket and there was no such thing as Uber back then. So 1 or 100 she could make a meal out of something and stuff. So they also then very much taught me about the concept of and or. So it wasn't a wife or a nurse or a farmer or a cricketer. It was and. They were all those things, including a lay preacher for my mum and community activist. So they very much taught me that life's about integration of multiple things that you do. I guess the country upbringing gave me the grounding of, a practical start to life and a grounding in around the concepts of people and connection, community and contribution, and service to society and hard work. It's probably that's the very grounding that then took me through my whole career, obviously, of 32 years in professional services requires all of those things and then some. At the age of 5, I was on a stage. We used to do community concerts, playing guitars and singing. Probably realised I was no Taylor Swift, so therefore singing was also off the cards. So it was probably more the things I couldn't do and and those things. But that is what I credit being able to stand on a stage and present and stand in front of really annoyed investment bankers and stuff, et cetera, in my future career and be on podcasts and not be terrified. So I guess over that time, daughter, a sister, a wife. I've been married to my husband, Noel, for 28 years. He's just gone 40 years at Westpac, which we're obviously lifers in our careers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we'll talk about later of why that's bad career advice now. But mother to two fantastic daughters. Brianna's 26 today, actually, so happy birthday, Bri.
Yeah.
She's a naturopath specialising in women's health, and youngest daughter, Skylar, is 23, and she's just qualified as an osteo. So bank manager, accountant, they went completely different directions. But it does mean my old age is well taken care of, particularly perimenopause. That's all good. and of my aches and pains with Skylar with some osteo, so that was good. So that was kind of the family side. From EY, I guess after all of that, what then attracted me to accounting was our family accountant. He'd show up with a big analysis book, and there was something magical about debits and credits. They have to balance. I know.
I'm not sure that is something that only an accountant could say. Something magical about debits and credits.
Well, and it's the irony because even now people say, well, you left accounting and numbers to work with people. It's kind of like, well, I wasn't a bookkeeper, so I didn't actually deal in numbers. In fact, so there was much more than that. But as you said, so 32 years at EY, 16 of those as a partner, which was over half of my career. So going back, it was VAC work in 1992 is when I started. So back then it was the big six. So P-Dubs and Coopers were still separate and Anderson was still around. So interviewed with them all, but EY just felt like it was the right place for me. It was the people and the culture and the like. So did my final year at Melbourne Uni, boring old single degree. I don't think I'd get a job now, but had a job waiting at the end, and then kicked off in 94. Started my life in audit, like as we all do. It's a good grounding in business. My first audit was Mobil Oil, which is where I fell into extractives, which was a big part of my career going forward and the like, not deliberately, just did. Morphed into technical accounting consulting. That was because I decided I couldn't keep doing audit. Kudos to those who want to do audit for the rest of their life. But for me, it was something a bit different. And I really like solving complex problems and trying to make them simple. So the last 10 years, as you said, I spent in complex accounting structuring. Some of that was upsetting investment bankers and structuring lawyers when I couldn't get something off balance sheet. Well, I can sell it, walk away from it, and have nothing to do with it ever again, and it's off balance sheet. So that was always good fun. But they always wanted to keep a piece of it. Can we? And they're like, so I always felt my superpower back then was making the complex simple whilst preserving egos. Because we're dealing with a lot of very senior people. It was not about making them feel dumb. And because accounting is hard and dry and boring, I admit it, I loved a good picture on a page and probably had an unhealthy relationship with Post-it notes because they're the way that I solve problems, and my walls at home are covered with them, and so using those and the like. So mining, most of my career was in male-dominated sectors, so mining, oil and gas, and let's be honest, professional services was fairly male-dominated back then. So very much tried to be myself, and that will come through later when we talk about authenticity, but try to be myself without becoming a bloke in a skirt. And kudos to the women who worked back then, but a lot of them did have to play and pretend to be something they weren't. And a lot of men, actually, to be quite honest, in my time. And so that ability to try and be who you were and the like. Country Girl went global, so in 2010 we went overseas to London. So until then we took the family over there for a couple of years, which was fantastic, and I kept a global role there for 12 years after that. So travelled a lot, more than 30 countries I got to see in the end, which is amazing. My husband said I used to fly around the world talking, which I was good at. So,
did you have time while you were away in those countries to actually go and see the destinations?
Did try because obviously it's a long haul flight for everywhere from Australia. Correct. This is a long way.
Exactly.
I had a lot of frequent flyer points. So it was certainly at the pointy end of the plane. But and the one thing was just learning different cultures and experiencing that food, wine, people, the local cuisine. But did usually try and tack a day or two on. Probably wasn't long, but something a bit longer. So that was always good fun. But all of that together, I guess EY was around the different people we experienced, as we said, the teams, the people, the cultures and perspectives. It's where I guess learnt the idea of not right, not wrong, just different. And to really sort of see, then that sort of put me in good stead in my career and beyond. The breadth of the firm, what we could do, learning very much back then you're better together. And yet there's no such thing as a cold call. Like even you and I meeting, right, that wasn't a cold call, that was Hayley to someone and then you know Hayley. And so so that idea. And then I think around the people side of things, for me, mentoring, the structure of professional services is you have a structure where you're managing people from a pretty young age and teams and stuff. And I had the benefit of a lot of amazing mentors across my time who believed in me. So Rodney Piltz, Dave McGregor, Annette Kimmett, Ruth Picker, John O'Grady, they and many more, but that idea of a reason season or a lifetime, and those 5 are lifetime people who will always be part of my life. And then me supporting others, so leading, coaching, counselling people. As I said, people thought my job was numbers. My job was just people. Yeah. And that's all professional services do, is they trade off in client relationships and those sort of things. So, and Tony Robbins, I always wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. My arms and hands were never as big as his. But I loved the way he could move a room and could help people see what they're capable of. Yes. So I suppose if I was to sum it all up, I guess accounting was my job, but my passion was people, and the advancement of those people, whether within EY or outside. So that was really the kind of start of it all.
Yeah. When you say your passion is people, your job was accounting, I think there's a lot of misinformation, I guess, in the professional services industry that, and you've already said it as well, that accounting is boring, that it's all about numbers. There's not really a lot of scope, like you get into a job like audit and you stay there forever. But that's not actually the case, is it? Because you're a people person, and you alluded to Hayley, and Hayley is also a very people-oriented person, and Shane is a very people-oriented person. So I don't think, there's a misconception that accounting is very dry and very heavy and very boring and very numbers oriented. But the best accountants, the best people with accounting degrees are the ones who are not focused on the numbers, right?
Absolutely. And I think because you don't sell shoes and handbags and things, all you are doing is trading in relationships and the like. And one of the things I always said to my team, there was a beautiful saying by a guy called Jay Danzy that said, your smile's your logo, your personality is your business card, and how you leave others feeling after an experience with you becomes your trademark. So people don't remember what you do for them, accounting advice, tax advice. They remember how you made them feel, and you guys know better than anyone. They come back to you because of the people. Yeah. And that is also very important, because in what we do, we will get something wrong. Small or huge. Yeah. And we've seen it in the profession. Obviously, some people have made some really bad mistakes. But people will come back if you build the rapport and you show an interest in someone beyond, hey, you're just a bill and a number and a tax return, then they will come back. And I talk about that all the time. And in accounting, that was exactly it. It was the human side of things, and that's why I stayed 32 years. I looked multiple times to leave because I wanted to make sure I was there, because I was there not just because I was too lazy to go anywhere else and the like, but it was that idea of people of your level, up above and below. You never stop learning, and once you do, if you think you've got it all as a senior partner or an owner of a business, then you should leave, because you always keep learning from everyone. And try to make it fun, because accounting was as dry as toast, right? Let's be clear. So the idea was to have a laugh, to make it memorable. I did a cartwheel once in the middle of a presentation. I can't remember why I thought that was useful, and I probably wouldn't do one now.
I was going to say, how did that go?
Was
the feedback good on that?
It was good, It's talked about to this day. It's not on camera because it was a bit too pre-socials. Man, would have gone ballistic. But it was the idea to, most people said we didn't, you were good at accounting, but that wasn't why, I had the reputation I did and stuff. So, but very important. Yeah. So.
And now you retired from accounting at a very,
Please don't ask me about
young
accounting
age.
I think I've forgotten. I think I've forgotten
that's okay.
again.
We're all going through AML at the moment, so accounting standards are so last week. Now we're talking about AML, and it's all about AML. When you retired from being an accountant, you decided that you would take on the people part of the passion. So the passion became the job now. So tell us a bit about how you saw that and why it became the thing that you wanted your second career to be, because that was career one. Like you could have been a farmer, you didn't. You became an accountant, career one, and now career two is the stuff that you actually have heart for. Not that you didn't have heart for accounting, but it's now about people.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you do follow my story, you'll see that my pet name for this is Tracy 2.0. And the genesis of that was when I decided to leave EY. I looked at LinkedIn, and I'd never been on LinkedIn. I didn't really need to at EY, but that's the place I now hang out. And everyone, like when it used to say Tracey Waring, partner of Ernst & Young, no one had to ask what that meant. And so until then I'd been thinking, well, not that I ever thought my job was who I was, but it kind of by saying that people just didn't have to you know, except my dad, who still calls it Ernest and Young. And I said, there's still no E, Dad. It's Ernst and Young. But, you know, he loves me for who I am, not what I did. And still probably doesn't understand what I did. So it flew off and went around the world. But there are a lot of people when they left had wrote ex-EY partner or ex-Microsoft. And I was very adamant. My EY was what I did, not who I was. And I was did not want that to be what I wanted to do. So I just wrote, taking a break after 32 years, Tracy 2.0 coming, I'll keep you posted. And that generated lots of conversation from people saying what a fascinating thing to write. So admittedly, when I did leave EY, I had a coach, Liz Lennon, who is in Sydney. She's probably mid to late 60s, used to work at Deloitte in HR. And she said to me, I think after 32 years, you might need to just have a little lie down. Like you might just so maybe for the next 6 months, I want you not to do anything. And I was like, have you met me?
I was going to say, that would be a challenge.
Pardon, what? So, you know, and in that time, a big part of my reason I left EY is my mum had advanced Parkinson's, and whilst I was always there when I needed to be, I just didn't have the time and the flexibility. And plus with Brianna and Skylar being where they were in their career, it was just really important for me to take that out. And you know, as life turns out, it was the right thing to do. Mum passed a couple of months ago, and it was just a wonderful 2 years to spend with Dad and Mum and being there and everything. And so it was that whole thing of I had more to give.
Yeah.
I always liked the people side, and I didn't not like my job, but I wanted to go before I didn't like my job.
Yeah.
And the one thing I saw is my role at EY as a partner was to make myself redundant. Partners are only custodians of the firm. Their job is to pass it on to the next group, and that's the way professional services, particularly the big firms, work. People tell you you're indispensable and you can't leave and we'll be lost without you, but the firm keeps going. And so I always took that very seriously as a partner. And what that meant was increasingly I stopped doing the things that gave me joy. So solving I know you don't quite understand accounting and don't really understand my love of accounting, but that's solving complex problems and navigating humans, because a $10 billion transaction is not accounting. It's a bunch of individuals having business objectives, transaction objectives, and individual humans. And I loved watching the human thing of when the shoulder dropped, you'd be like, oh, there's something in that and things. And so I guess what I saw is my job as a partner was to make myself redundant. And what that meant was in the last couple of years of my career, and you know, a lot of partners want to go out and hire because they want to be board members, et cetera, whereas I actually thought my job was so that when I left, clients would say, gosh, we'll miss you, but we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so increasingly I sent my teams out, my directors and senior managers, to do the things that I enjoyed, which was the technical accounting, the people, the structuring, et cetera. You know, the getting into the detail and sitting in a room and trying to come up with an answer, because what I was good at was not the purest technical accounting. I know that would make some people very upset, but playing in the grey, right? Because accounting is a bunch of frameworks, and then you have the messiness that is business and the like. And so playing in the grey was always the fun bit. But I stopped doing that, and I realised probably someone told me it was 2023 when I started to be different and made the decision in 24 to go. But looking back, it was kind of going, but everything that lights me up, I'm not doing, and I'm not meant to be doing. But then you're sort of going, well, I don't hate my job, but it was time to go.
So was that a conscious decision though? Was it so you knew you had to do it? Did you know that then when you realised that was then your time was up?
Yeah, and so it was interesting because people sort of said, wow, like when did you decide? And so the timeline was sort of along the lines of February 2024. You know, I'd been talking about things and it was only in hindsight people said, well, we've just noticed you haven't been yourself, whatever that means. Yeah. And so had some discussion.
Were they right in that respect, do you think?
I think in reflection, yes, but it wasn't like I suddenly wasn't not doing all the things I did, but there was the spark, I guess, wasn't quite the same.
Yeah, okay.
I did think about morphing into sustainability for a bit because that was obviously new and exciting and huge and that's really just understanding something. But it was one Saturday morning, I'd been speaking to my boss prior to that about my options, like what does it look like, what could I do? And I just went for a 3-hour walk and came home and said to my husband, Noel, I said, I'm done. And he's like, what? Sorry, what? Okay, cool. And then on Monday went back to my boss and said, actually, I'm done. And she's like, oh, okay. So, and then felt very settled with that decision. And I think that's important. Whenever you make tough decisions, you can feel it in your waters, in your bones, in your stomach, wherever you feel it. And so that was February 24. And then my boss was good because she said, look, you can stay till 1 July, but it will be death by 1,000 cuts. We're doing budgets moving forward. You are wanting to do something different. So by 31 March, I was finished up.
Right, that was quick.
I had to spend a lifetime of unravelling my life from EY email because I realised that every
you'd used it for literally everything.
Literally, which is obviously not a good idea and probably shouldn't have. But, so that took a while. But it was then that decision of what next. As we said, Liz Lennon said have a little lie down for a while. So for 6 months I didn't do nothing, but I didn't decide what the next thing was. And then, as you rightly said, people were always what I wanted to do. Tony Robbins, now it's Mel Robbins and Simon Sinek and all those guys. So it then became very clear that starting my solopreneur practice of leadership advisory was important, and that focuses on working with organisations and people on building the human skills that are critical to careers, businesses, lives and legacies, and skills that, particularly in an AI world, we need more than ever. Skills that are weakened and the environments are not naturally teaching them anymore just because of hybrid and technology and generational shift. It's just not we need to start teaching those.
The young people, so I mean, I say young people, we were the young people at one point.
We still are.
Talking about 32 years. When we started the firm, we were young people. We're not so young anymore. Now everybody is younger than us, really. Like most, that's where it comes from.
That's not quite true with our team.
Not with our team, but it's mostly younger people that you're working with. Like they're younger than you, they're younger than us. Yes. And when we very first did the intro, you said that's probably really bad career advice, as in staying somewhere for 32 years. What we want to do on Q&A with SNA is make sure that people who are listening understand the human element of what this is. So it wasn't a bad thing for you to stay somewhere for 32 years, but you would tell people these days that a lifetime job is not necessarily the way they should be thinking.
Exactly. So I suppose the interesting thing is, even though 32 years at EY and my husband's 40 years at Westpac, it's not been the same thing. And to be fair, even the times when I did look outside Ernst & Young to go get a job somewhere else, what stopped me was I'm not sure I could go to the same business for the rest of my life doing the same thing. And at EY it was audit of a kindergarten through to Mobil Oil to Newcrest to Henley Properties.
The job title's the same, but the work is never the same.
No, and the humans keep changing. And so over 32 years, if I could write a book of all the people I've met, it's incredible because people they cycle through because they're meant to cycle through as well. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not saying you shouldn't stay somewhere for 32 years, but it's probably unlikely. And so for our children, so for Brianna and Skylar, as they've gone into the world, there's probably been a level of implied stress because they've felt like they've had to pick their boss for the rest of their lives and their job. And I keep saying to them, you are not doing that. And in fact, I think statistics show that graduates now have 11 different careers in their lifetime and the like. So what I say to people now and to my kids and to others who wish to listen is, like, life and careers is like a smorgasbord. You should try everything. And I honestly believe there is no such thing as a bad decision. Every decision is made based on what you know at the time, and then every outcome of that gives you data to make the next decision. So if you try the salmon and you don't like it, you didn't make the wrong decision. It just says you don't like salmon now or ever. So try the chicken. So, Mel Robbins does an amazing podcast called 13 Things I Wish I Knew in My 20s. And it was actually Brianna who sent it to me, which is ironic because I'm the Mel Robbins fan and usually sending her podcast going, listen to this. But she talked about your 20s with this idea of the great scattering. So when you get to your 20s, it's the first time in your life that there's no yardstick to measure, like primary school, high school. Some go to uni, some don't. And increasingly, less and less are going traditional paths, et cetera. But I think it's that concept of you should try things, remove the word should. If I could get my children to never say the word should, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And I think it was Sandra Sahlberg in her book Lean In, she said life's more like a jungle gym. It's not a ladder. Sometimes the best route up is sideways, down, back, and sometimes you fall off, right? And you get back on, and you find that. And I think if you're open to what's next, and a big part of Tracy 2.0 is the idea of you can be one conversation away from an opportunity that could change everything. You just don't know it. And, you know, if you ask me, would I have moved my family to London? Even a year prior to going, I would said that'd be ridiculous. I'd always sort of said no to secondments because of family and all sorts of things, mum with Parkinson's. But it was such an pivotal time and it changed everything for us. You know, and you know, there's a story behind I almost said no to that. But in a world of AI, and the World Economic Forum talks about the Future of Jobs report, the 8 of the 10 top skills needed are human skills, and one of them is adaptability and curiosity, and all of those things. And so just try things, right? You know, kiss the wrong people, say hi to the wrong people. I don't know, but you just figure out what you want, but don't beat yourself up, and don't ever do the what would you tell your 20-year-old self, because all I'd say is good luck, you've got this, and I'm here. There's no point me telling you everything I know. You've got to touch the fire to know it's hot. So
exactly.
I'll support you when you scrape your knee. I'll try not to say I told you so. And as big as a parent, I want to say never goes down well. Yeah, never goes down well. But so I think from that perspective is don't just assume it's one route. Be open, and sometimes going backwards is needed. You know, what's the saying? You got to pull an arrow backwards to make it go forward. So be easy on yourself. But it's hard for this generation because the world has socials saying everyone's living their best life and they're perfect. And when you're not, suddenly you feel really behind. Yeah.
I think it's important too to let the people around you know that they can reinvent themselves in front of you.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of people out there who think I can't do anything different. Like you obviously did a million things at EY in 32 years, and at some points you would have been sitting there going, oh, what are they going to say if I go in there and I do this a bit differently? It's okay to go in there and do it a bit differently, and for the people around you to go, oh wow, I actually like that Tracy, that different Tracy, because it's not just because you're in a place for a long time doesn't mean that you're the same person when you exit as when you started. You're going to change a whole lot between then and there. How do you talk to people around that sort of adaptability as well? Because it's not, some people do just love where they work and don't ever want to go anywhere. And you obviously, and Noel as well, and people that we've already spoken about, Hayley, she's been in the same place for a long time. Shane has done the same thing for a long time. It's okay to also do the same thing with the same place. What do you talk to them about? Because it's not always changing what you do isn't always about going, oh, I'm going to throw everything out that I was doing last week and I'm going to start completely afresh.
Yeah, and I think I guess the messaging is all of the above is right. And so the point is there is no – I hated the word role model.
Yeah.
Notoriously hated it because I'm not you, you're not me, you don't have my life. And so a big part of what I've always talked about, and now that's one of my programs, is Project You, which is most people don't understand themselves and they don't know how they got to where they are. And so the idea of, it starts with you and you are the constant. So the Confucius say, wherever you go, there you are. But most people don't, and that is all levels. That is the junior burgers through to most senior partners. Most do not know what makes themselves tick. And so I spend a lot of time with them sort of saying, let's unpack of where you are now. So before you start to, there's a great analogy if you're into F1, like driving your car. Before you set off somewhere, you sort of need to know the vehicle you're in and why is it that it is. And so talk a lot around who are you, where you were born, you're bred, your brothers, your sisters, they're just all facts. But importantly, what story do you tell yourself about that? Me, I was born on a farm. I could either say because I was born on a farm, I'm behind, or because I was born on a farm, therefore I have a good grounding in community, etc. So Tony Robbins says you want to change your story, want to change your life, change the story you tell yourself about your life. Yeah. And so it's about who you are. It's then your mindsets, your values, your beliefs. How do you think? How do you show up? It's taking all that into the world of then how do you behave? Are you humble? Are you kind? Do you assume everyone's an idiot, or do you give them the grace that everyone's got something going on? And then the idea of the interactions and impact you have on others, and I'm doing this because the infinity symbol is what I use as that framework, and all of that comes back to you and then says, Shane, the world thinks you're amazing or the world thinks you're shit. What are you going to do with that? And so it's about then going, you have choice. And I'm a massive believer in you can't control what happens to you, but you absolutely can decide what to do with that. And when I did my CA, I wrote a speech and I used the term, if it's to be, it's up to me. My career, my life, lots of support, but I have to decide. Graham Samuel was the keynote speaker that day. Graham Samuel, very big businessman here, and he was a bit annoyed. He said, you kind of took my thing. And I'm like, sorry, Graham, I didn't mean to offend you, and hopefully you've gotten over that now. But it was that idea, you've got the power to choose. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of when I work with people, that Project You is most people have handed over the power of their lives to others. They're in the passenger seat of their car of life, and it's trying to get them back into the driver's seat. And then from that go, what of my life serves me well and what is not? Yeah. Some things are good, some things are bad, something you want to take forward. So that idea, as you said, change. People can change. And evolution, you're meant to evolve. So you know, Tracy, when she was starting at EY at 22, Tracy when she got married, Tracy as a mum, Tracy retired. And so I'm a different person, and it was about taking what I needed, watching others. The role model bit is, I like that, and I don't. You know, you saw people who do great things, and you saw people do horrific things. Going, I don't want to be that, and it's about putting that together. But the idea being, you can reinvent yourself, and the idea of taking yourself forward, who you're meant to be, not back to who you were, because you don't want to go back to who you were. You sort of want to be like water and flow and move and pivot and figure out what does it look like, and you are allowed to change. Values don't change. That sits at the bottom of all that, but it's the idea of putting all those things together. So I think choice and change and evolution are critical in everything we do.
I'm trying to work out how to relate this. So one of the things I observe, and again, to get your feedback on there's, and you look at a business and the people within the business, there's some that have that inherently have it, and others don't. Those that don't have that motivation to try something different or to go outside their comfort zone, can you still encourage them and to get them to actually achieve that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, they've got to want to do it for themselves, but inherently and I saw that across my career, it was where someone believed in them. You've got people who inherently, they believe in themselves. But there is also the other side of slightly too arrogant, right? You sort of, you walk on water. So there's always that, the duality of life. But I think certainly over my career and why I'm doing what I'm doing is, you know, I never gave people answers to anything, not even my children. I'd like to say I can tell them what to do, but, you know, that's a losing battle. But I don't want to. Like, all I can do is give you the scaffolding, the guidance, the support. And, you know, often, like even in my own career, despite my success, I can give you many stories of self-doubt. And I had to borrow belief from others who believed in me until I believed in myself. So I think they need encouragement. They also need bosses who need to lead by example. So, you know, authentic leadership we talk about and vulnerability. That is lacking a lot in the world we live. It's really tough at the moment, professional services, business. So leaders feel stressed about, you know, in their iceberg of life, they're all keeping their waterlines pretty high because there's a concern if I tell you that I'm struggling, it might be like whack-a-mole and like, oh, well, you can go then. But people don't want to see swans. They don't want their leaders to be these perfect guiding, oh my gosh, they never get it wrong. And so, you know, one thing I tried to do is there'd be days I was grumpy and because I'm human, right? And so it was about then sort of going in the next day and saying, hey, look, sorry, I was grumpy yesterday. It wasn't you. It was my dog, my cat, whatever. Or guess what? It was you, and we need to have a chat. And which probably terrified them. But we're so worried about it because everyone seems to be conflict averse because we're worried that but vulnerability on a hard day and authentic leadership is the tough conversations, is getting it wrong and then having to apologise. It is being grumpy and having to apologise. But people need to see that. They need to see that it's okay because this fail fast, so I want you to make mistakes. As soon as they see someone, so actions speak louder than words, as soon as they see someone getting in trouble for making a mistake, then you increasingly go, I know you say, but I watch what you do. And so, you know, you've got to lead from the front, and I think it can be nurtured into people, not easily, and we don't want everyone to be cookie cutter. everyone's got their style, and as I say, don't ask a fish to climb a tree. Finding how each person will come into their own in a way, and for you guys running a business, you don't want robots who are the same. You want humans who can come together and as a group complement each other, because you're not meant to be good at everything. You can learn to run a marathon if you so choose, but that fish to climb a tree sort of says, I should never ask you to do that because that's just not who you are. So how do I bring out the best in you?
Yeah.
But I do honestly think it can be taught and needs to be taught, because our environments are not nurturing it as it used to. And AI is, and technology runs the risk of really damaging those human skills that are going to be critical, not just in career but also in their lives as well.
Yeah.
So.
You've mentioned authentic leadership a couple of times, and we've got to talk about it because it's one of the key things that are part of your programs. You've mentioned really briefly that it's about being a bit vulnerable and, bringing yourself, your true self, finding out what that might be. How do you work with people in those? Because, talking about it from a professional services environment as well, it is very ego-driven. It's very I know everything that I need to know, and, there's the hierarchy is still really present. We have tried in our business to drop the hierarchy out. It doesn't work. Like it just it's not a flat surface. The professional services, it needs that hierarchy. How do you work with people in that? Because obviously you're going into professional services firms because it's where you've sort of lived for a long time. How do you work in professional services with that?
Well, I think with it, when it comes to authenticity, and I think so, in its simplest form, the dictionary says that authenticity is not being false or copied, and you're genuine and real. Bill George is probably one of the leading authors and teachers in this space. So he actually teaches authentic leadership at Harvard Business School. Was on the board of Goldman Sachs. Was the CEO of Medtronic. So, and he talks about authentic leadership being this idea that you build your legitimacy as a leader through building honest relationships. That's part of it. With those who follow you and value your input. Ethical foundations are critical to authentic leadership. I say it again and again and again, but that idea that they're very self-aware and they're genuine and self-actualised, which means they accept who they are, which is a big knowing who you are and then accepting who you are is two different things. They know their strengths, they know the limitations, they know their emotions, and they're prepared to show their real selves. So that's what leadership is. Unfortunately, authentic leadership can be misunderstood. It is not saying everything that comes into your mind however you want to say it. It is not being emotional or oversharing or just saying, well, bad luck, that's just who I am, you'll have to deal with it. And so that's toxic authenticity. As I said earlier, the bring your whole self to work has limits. I like to sing and dance on a table at a pub, but that's not okay for a boardroom, right? So the idea, and I think that's where it got wrong, because someone's saying, well, that's just who I am, but in the world we live in, we need to dance with other humans. And so it's about saying, well, who am I? And I call it more agile authenticity, which is showing up in a way that's still you but appropriate for the room that you're in. Yeah. So I think a big part of that is then just sort of thinking, well, what does an authentic leader look like? And that is, things like knowing yourself, building trust, making mistakes, owning them publicly, the idea that you're serving a higher purpose. It's I talk about the idea of, career, life, legacy. It's bigger than us and me, we, world. It's way beyond just us. We're contributing to something bigger than us. And I think if you think it's about you and if a leader's about them, then I'd be telling an organisation you are in trouble because you've got a leader who thinks they know everything. I think it's also saying to them that leadership's not a title. Everyone assumes that to be a leader you must be the manager or you must be the founder or the CEO or the CEC, whatever. But leadership is a decision to do good to the left of you and do good to the right of you. There's a good TED talk by Drew Dudley called Everyday Leadership, and he said, we've made leadership bigger than ourselves such that we don't give ourselves the right to expect it and to want it and that we think we can do it. And I honestly think that leadership and authentic leadership, it's not a natural trait. It can be taught and it can be nurtured. But I think it is leading by example and also just working with organisations, particularly when you see people who think they know everything, that's really dangerous. And you guys would know that in professional services as well, because we don't know everything.
No, absolutely not.
And, you know, when I first started EY, I remember a senior person said to me, "What's that thing?" And I said, "What, the fax machine?" And he goes, "I don't know what that is." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Fast forward to when I was a partner, and then the young kiddies would say to me, "Do you know how to do a pivot table?" I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "How do you not know how to do a pivot table?" I'm like, "Because I don't have to know everything. At some point I can just say, you can teach me," and the like.
Yeah.
But so, and I think when it comes to knowing everything, when I became a partner of EY, they said to me, "If you consult and you get it wrong, the firm will stand beside you.
Mm-hmm.
If you go it alone thinking you know it all and you muck up, they'll hang you out to dry." And so that whole machine was around, you know, ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume you know all the answers. In fact, I was just telling Jasmine at the front there, your lovely staff member, about there was a wonderful story when I became partner. So you became principal before you became partner. We had a principal conference, and there was a senior partner there, Graham Ezzy, who told a story about the idea of what we're meant to do as senior leaders. And he said he went to a meeting one day with a senior partner called Brian Long. Now, Brian used to be our chairman not only of Australia but EY Global, and he was a pretty influential player, you know, kind of sort of the right-hand man for Kerry Packer and a few of those people. So he was someone who, you know, knew stuff.
Yeah.
And Graham said, "I remember going to a meeting with Brian, to a client, and the client was telling them about they wanted to do something. Fly to the moon. It wasn't that. But the idea was, and so during the meeting, the client's explaining they want to go to the moon, and Graham's sitting there thinking, tell them they can't fly to the moon, you know, Brian, like, let's, you know. But Brian just kept asking questions like, why do you want to fly to the moon? What are you trying to achieve? What have you thought through, et cetera? And when the meeting was over, Graham says to Brian, why didn't you tell them they couldn't fly to the moon? Like, it's ridiculous. And he goes, look, I know that. But he said, how arrogant am I in the first 5 minutes to tell them something they might have been thinking about for 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years. So he said, what I did do, though, is I tried to figure out what they're trying to achieve. So what I want you to do, Graham, is given that they want space travel, adventure, et cetera, I want you to go and figure out what they can do. So when I go back and say, well, regretfully, client, we can't get you to the moon, but we can get you to Mars, or we can get you a race car track around, Phillip Island. But he said, because, that therefore you've listened. And so he sort of said, never say no in the first half of a meeting or first meeting or whatever. And it's something that stuck with me for a very long time, because clients are clients, they've got ideas, we know stuff, but maybe we don't have all the facts. And another partner of mine, John O'Grady, he always said people often ask the wrong question. Is this a lease? Well, actually, no, it's a derivative. So, sorry to do accounting talk again. But
it's just the natural.
I think it just comes out. Hayley would know what I'm talking about. But that idea that you just be careful before you assume. Just say, hang on, have I got this right? Is that what you're meaning? And I say, actually, no, or there's something you don't know. And running your own business, that's exactly what you want. But your people, you want them to be curious and keep asking questions, and that's the risk we run with AI, is they assume the box is right. The box isn't always right.
No.
The box can be very flattering. It's great. ChatGPT says I'm amazing. I'm changing the world.
Great ideas there, Tracy.
I'm so amazing. Your book's going to be amazing. But no, I think that's a real, and again, talking to Jasmine, she was sort of saying that she's visiting her nieces and nephews, and they ask questions. Why? Why? And it's annoying. But something happens because they stop asking questions. And as an owner of a firm, you don't want people to say yes.
No.
I mean, there are days you do want them to, to do
as you say.
Please.
Just get that tax return done, please.
Stop asking questions. But the point is, there is hierarchy for a reason. That's important. You can take collaboration input, but then someone has to make the call, and that is the reality of life, as well as even raising children and stuff. There is sometimes it says I am the parent, therefore the answer is A, B, C, and then sometimes as a parent you have to let go and say, I can see a train wreck coming, or it's not going to be good, but I kind of have to let you to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and importantly, the hierarchy, because we've talked about it, and we, early on in business said, okay, no hierarchy. It's not the way we do things. We want it to be all very, community and congenial and everything like that. The hierarchy doesn't impact on you being a leader. So if you're 100%. In the bottom of the hierarchy rung of the way the table works, that does not stop you from being an authentic leader. You can still do those things from the bottom all the way to the top.
Absolutely. And for me, it's as simple as also being humble, because there is no pay, power or position that makes you better than anybody.
Exactly.
And at my retirement dinner, we had the receptionist came, the catering came, the concierge came, and people said, well, why are all those people here? And they sort of said, because she was always just nice to us.
Yeah.
She said hello. And I said, trust me, the people you don't annoy are EAs, receptionists, printers and catering.
Exactly.
Because otherwise your life grinds to a halt. Right? Let's be clear who's got the power. It isn't partners. It's those, not so much printing these days. But it's just because, be kind. Like, smile at your barista next time. Look them in the eye.
Yeah.
I challenge you that most people are busy swiping when they're ordering a coffee. Smile at someone on a tram. Hopefully they won't think that's weird. But humans just want to be seen, valued and,
they do.
belong. And so I think, like you said, just do good things. Do good to the left of you and the right of you. There's no such thing as the world. And Drew Dudley talks about this. We talk about changing the world, but there are just multiple billion people's views of the world. And if we could just change one person's view of the world, then we could change everything.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big, lofty assignment of I'm going to do this week. It can just be smiling at the barista or saying hello to someone or good morning when you're on your morning walk or something like that.
100%.
Yeah,
and even in your foyer here, you've got as simple as you've got tissues down the bottom and drinks and those sort of things. You might think they're a big deal, but they're just something that's relatively insignificant, but when someone's got a runny nose, it could mean everything.
Yeah, exactly. Tracy, our team is going to be very lucky to spend some time with you this year. I haven't told them, so this is a secret that I'm letting out. Let's see how many of them listen to this podcast episode. But Tracy's going to come in and spend some time with our team, and I'm looking forward to being able to have her on the podcast for various other reasons as well, even on our Plant Grow Reap podcast, because some of the ideas here are not just about what it is for Tracy, but for us to be able to offer for our community around us, because it's really important stuff. But other than you coming in to present to our Aintree Group team, what else have you got planned for the year? Like, now that Tracy 2.0 has launched, what is the forward plan for Tracy? There's got to be a plan because you're an accountant, so there's a spreadsheet somewhere with a planner, task.
Well, as I said, Post-it notes. There's a wall of Post-it notes if you want me to show you a photo. But so as we sort of said, the what I'm doing now is running my own practice, and my target market is professional services, organisations, and corporates. In the area of emerging leaders, high potential talent, new partner, director pipelines, managers, and even some senior leaders who are looking to strengthen their collaboration, their influence, and how they build relationships. Never have I seen in my time so much movement amongst firms. Obviously, we've got the rise of the private equity-backed firms, Horizon, Nexus, and A&M, and those sort of things. So the industry is changing fundamentally, and the model is under threat conceptually. And as we said, technology, hybrid, generational shift, we need to be teaching that. And so I like to say, I don't want to run someone's program. I'm like TikToks for parents. Parents tell their children things, and then some TikToker or influencer says something and suddenly it's life-changing. So my idea is and you're like, didn't I say, okay, fine, wherever you charge your battery.
You're just going to let it go.
Yeah, I know, let it go. So it's about coming in because organisations the same as yours. You've got programs, you've got all the messaging. Just sometimes, and I saw it at EY, when you bring in someone external, it just it's like a
light bulbs go off.
Yeah, light bulbs go off, and there's a level of energy you can then build off and say, remember how she said that? And so it's not about holding organisations captive, saying you must buy my services forever. It's about sort of that injecting in your program that you can then take forth and do without needing me there. So that's sort of the focus there around that. I guess, as I said, that I mentioned earlier, Project U is one of my programs, which is all around self-awareness and truly is the starting premise of everything. In addition to that, what I'm super excited about is Better Connected, I should say, which is all around connection. And I don't mean networking, I mean connection. And what I'm seeing in organisations is it showing up as silos between teams, collaboration isn't happening, decisions are being taking longer because they don't realise someone's already thought about that and they haven't connected. partners and senior people are retiring, and out the door goes years of relationships, because those relationships are invested from many years of caring about them, knowing the kid's name, the dog's name, the footy team they barrack for, and the like. People are terrified of calling a client. Heaven forbid you pick up a phone and call a client. And people are inherently afraid of conflict. But, you know, there's plenty of times when just because you and I have an argument doesn't mean that we don't, you know, we won't talk to each other again. You have to sometimes say no to a client and stuff. And for me, all things BD, collaboration, client growth, belonging, connection sits at that. And but the thing about connection, the one thing that I was adamant when I built my programs is, in my career, sometimes you got the advice of, you need to be more strategic, Tracy. And you go, okay, cool. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
What do
on
I
earth
do?
does that mean?
What do I do to be more strategic? And they said, well, why don't you go chat to that partner over there, because they're very strategic. So off I go, and I'd say, hey, John, you're very strategic. What is it that you do? And he goes, well, I just sometimes sit back and put my feet on the windowsill and ponder life. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean? Because I'm like I picture on a page. I kind of, I deal with complexity. I need to break it down to what would I physically do tomorrow? And so the program I build is around the idea that you can't actually teach connection, because connection's co-developed between you and I, and whether or not I leave here and you decide she was amazing or actually she was terrible, I can be as witty and tell you as many jokes and things, but that is something that you decide. And so the program is about teaching the behaviours that sit beneath the environment that then enables better connection. So trust, generosity, nurturing, amplifying others, and those sort of things, and then sort of the traits of empathy, active listening, curiosity, and all those, and gives very practical. Next week, I want you to try this one thing. Look at a barista in the eye and see what happens. Go and ask, give a partner a hug. Because senior people need a hug sometimes as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So when was the last time you gave us, your owner a hug because you assume that life's good for them? And so, so it's all around teaching that, but with the aim, an overlay of style. So I've created a diagnostic that sort of says, again, that idea of don't ask a fish to climb a tree. The way you connect and the way I connect is different, and that is okay. And most people, when you say let's go to a networking event, would rather poke themselves in the eye. It's not really what they want to do.
Absolutely.
But then if you have to go to one, can you then pair up with someone and say, actually, I love working a room, and, you and I, Shane, you want to meet this person, let's go together. And you both go over and say, hi Barry, hi Simon, nice to meet you. And, and you might really want to tell them about your business or some issue, AMLs, anti-money laundering, as exciting as that is, I'm sure. But instead of you going, hi, my name's Shane, can I tell you about my business? I can go, oh, my gosh, Andrew, you should really meet Shane. He's got this fantastic business in Hawthorne, got a great team down there, and he's doing some really cool things there. Shane, do you want to just tell Andrew about it? And then you've got this warm introduction, and then as it's going back and forth, that third person can kind of pick out things and then allow you to go, well, why don't you guys take this offline and back to an environment one-on-one where you'd be happy to have that. And so most people don't even realise that you can team up together and go, well, I'm going to A and you're going to B, let's go together. So it's sort of the behaviours and the style go together. But then it's about saying to people, but connection's not the outcome. So connection just provides you access to people, information, advocacy and ideas. And then that access unlocks the door to possibilities to grow, to learn and to belong. And so... and what I'm most excited about is the book that I'm writing, which is called One Conversation Away, and it's the idea that you could be, you never know what one conversation could make possible. And it tells you about my program, but also an amazing bunch of stories of we had this random conversation and it went here ended up over here. And I guess the most critical thing, again, as I talked about career life and legacy and sitting behind Better Connected, the metaphor is Charlotte's Web. It is a spiderweb diagram, but it's that idea of, Charlotte shone a light on Wilbur. He was the run to the litter. He was going to be, unfortunately, taken somewhere to end his life. And so using her words of humble pig, they saw him in a different light. And then ultimately Charlotte died and her legacy continued. And it's that whole idea that your web of connection, it's not a hub and spoke. You're not meant to be the centre of everything and I must be. And some people want to be. the idea is I might connect you two and then never see you again.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll go and do great things together.
Yeah.
And maybe you and I won't. So it's not transactional. It's just that sometimes the meeting of the here and the here and even our coffee the other couple of weeks ago, you know, instantly you're like, oh, you should meet this person. I should introduce you to, you know.
Exactly.
And so
That's
the instant thing. So, and that lights me up. So I love, and for me, I don't need to change everyone's life, but if one person takes one thing away from me, so in a room of 1,000, if there was one person nodding in my accounting things, I'd be like, thank goodness, someone's paying attention. Someone likes accounting. But so because as I said, I don't change what I say. It's just that the right time for the right person, something clunks and they go, if it's to be, it's up to me. Yeah. I've written that on my wall. Thank you. I mean, it wasn't mine. Most of my life is just curating content and dropping it for other people. But that's certainly what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. We're so lucky to have you come and join the team for a couple of sessions through our Culture Week, giving the team a bit more detail about what is all coming. But I think that, like you said, the team, it's things that they've heard before, but hearing it in such a vibrant and passionate way it's going to really make them have a good September, I think, and hopefully beyond there. We're going to share everything about you and your programs, Tracy, as part of this podcast.
Amazing.
Info, it'll go out to all of the people listening. But thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's been fantastic. We've really loved having you here. And thank you to Hayley. We haven't had Hayley on the podcast because she says to me that she's not allowed to. It's part of her partner's agreement at EY. So she'll have to retire before she can come on the podcast. But thank you to Hayley and Trung for connecting Tracy to us, because we otherwise wouldn't have known each other. So there's the connection, really important. It's not necessarily that Trung had to do anything, and Hayley certainly isn't going to be here for September, although maybe I could drag her in. But thank you so much for coming today. It's been a real pleasure meeting you and spending time with you in the podcast studio. And we look forward to having you again, because there's so much more that we could cover. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Q&A with S&A. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back in your ears soon.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.